Hi everybody, welcome back from the afternoon break. We're ready to start again with the next session. And this is on the economic importance of disaggregation. So it's the topic that's closest to my heart because it's all about money. And so I'm very glad, so I'm honored to be invited to moderate this session. My name is TTVSummitSeries. I'm the editorial director of TelecomTV. You can find my face online on the TelecomTV website if you wish to go and look. And I'm glad to say that we've got 4 great speakers for this session this afternoon. So I'd like to invite them to join me on the stage. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, so to kick off the session, I'm just going to get the speakers to introduce themselves quickly one by one before we get into this discussion. So let's start here on the left with James.
Good afternoon, guys. Thank you for joining us today, and thanks for asking us along. You can see that we've been split the operators up, so Franz at the end and Vodafone at this end. So, but on a serious note, we should be working together on this. We shouldn't be split and apart. But yeah, so James Grayling, I head up the product integration and performance team within Vodafone under the Open RAN function, and the responsibility there is to make sure that we do the full end-to-end testing of all components within the Open RAN infrastructure.
Okay, thank you, James.
Hey, my name is Boris Maurer, and actually it's not that reason that you want to work together, but actually the true reason why they're on the ends is because they want to, as usual, squeeze us, as Franz said. So I'm Boris Maurer, I'm leading comms and media in Europe for Accenture.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Slawomir Pietrzyk. I'm a CEO and founder at IS Wireless. We are a rising European provider of 5G complete stack of RAN and core functionality. And I was also asked to share some of my hobbies. So for 30 years, I was an athlete doing karate, Kyokushin. That's a full contact karate. Thank you.
So don't mess with Slawomir, that's the message.
I need to rethink my squeezing thing now. Shit. So, hi, you may remember me, you have seen me before. I'm Franz Seiser with Deutsche Telekom running our ORAN program. Still, I have a different perspective on that. You know, one of our guiding principles in Deutsche Telekom is team together, team apart. So we do team together with Vodafone, even though we make sure these guys go in the right direction. We don't squeeze them, but we give them a little bit of direction where the whole journey should go to. That's how I look at it.
Okay, thanks very much, gentlemen. Okay, let's get down to the topic in hand here. And of course, the topic is, why does disaggregation make sense from an economic point of view? And this is a very pertinent question because I think so far today we've heard a lot of talk about how Open RAN can deliver better TCO, etc. But not everybody in the industry agrees with that, and not all operators agree with that. So, I mean, what is the economic case for Open RAN? So, James, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, TCO has to be probably one of the main drivers behind Open RAN. And I think the reason behind it is that it encourages competition in the market, number one. And I think having competition in the market drives up innovation, but also drives down ultimately cost. So, you know, more competition and more market players, I think, is going to be one of the main drivers. The other thing is around, you know, being able to influence those suppliers and vendors to be able to develop their products to a better level of maturity as well, and getting to the market quicker. And therefore, they're, you know, again, driving down that cost. But one of the other big points around TCO is that if you look at the traditional networks that we have today, sometimes we've got servers and racks in our network that are 20 years old. These are costing us money from an energy perspective and a maintenance perspective. Open RAN brings the opportunity to be able to go in and swap components out much quicker, like an IT world where you can swap out the components after 2 or 3 years. So therefore, you're keeping up to date with the latest technology, far more energy efficient, and being able to drive down the costs on that. So I think TCO is really a main part of Open RAN.
Okay, Boris.
So, James, more or less, I think, made the case. There is 20-30% of CapEx and OpEx reductions to be had, but there's also prerequisites. And the prerequisites is that it's a different way of working. It's more or less getting to own your own destiny. It's different skills and capabilities that CSPs needs to build, and there needs to be also an operating model which is as standardized as the networks are today in order to get to the benefits. So it's also probably something where, and really you all need to work together, and we all need to work together in the ecosystem to find a way of working, a way how we automate, a way on how we onboard partners, and on how we basically work together in a much more complex ecosystem than we had in the past. And then there is clear benefits to be had. And I would also stress the flexibility. So one thing is the TCO argument, but the other thing is the flexibility and the mastery of the own destiny for CSPs to basically see, and where we are involved now in Open RAN projects, we see that already. If a certain hardware isn't fit for purpose, that you can basically go for another choice. And the swap times are not zero. The investment is not zero, but it's much faster and much better to basically swap out components and use other ones to drive innovation, drive down cost, drive down other KPIs that are important to you to actually create more business benefit faster. And in the end, what I believe will be the key value driver is on a network that you build on Open RAN principles, you will be able to deploy much faster and change much faster, and that will create end customer value in the enterprise, but also finally in the B2C arena.
Okay. Slawomir, anything so far you disagree with?
So far, actually, I agree with those statements. So the TCO, of course, that's one point. But even with the same TCO as with a single RAN, I would say it is an advantage to go for an open and disaggregated system because you have a freedom of choice then. And that's a very important thing that you don't see until you are really pressed by the monopoly of somebody else. And I would say that we would need to add the cost factor to the single RAN solutions, and that's the cost that you need to account when you are really dependent on just one provider. And RAN networks are wide area networks, so you cannot mix vendors over a large area, typically. That makes them monopolistic, unfortunately. So to add to that, one point is that open ecosystems and open systems, disaggregated systems, they are also unleashing the bottom-up creativity of smaller players. And that's very important. You have not only more choices, but you have more healthy environment to compete and to get the best of the breed out of what the environment has. This is, I think, very important factor. Thanks.
And would you count your company as an example of this?
Yes, to a certain extent. We are still small, but we've seen already smaller players as well, and they really add value. They can add value.
Okay. Franz?
Yeah, I fully agree to everything that has been said, but let me look at it from a slightly different perspective. So economic sense is TCO, sure, but it's also top line. What can you do to provide something new, make your customer more happy? And as said multiple times, the supplier market for traditional RAN is shrinking all the time. I have seen it myself. And as a matter of fact, with only very few very big suppliers, it's almost impossible to differentiate because they have their standard product, so you can deploy the standard product. You can differentiate by number of sites, but there's very little you can do on top. So what could we do? And the answer, as explained already, was disaggregate, enable smaller players, and there will be many small players which are much more, it makes much more sense for them to work with few operators to provide some more tailor-made solutions. They're all made of software. So there is much more opportunity for operators to differentiate, to bring new products, to bring them fast, to not only lower TCO, but also provide new opportunities that hopefully will attract customers and also help to run our top line. So TCO is the one thing, but being flexible, having new products fast to work on the top line is the second thing.
Okay, so just as a quick follow-up, can I ask you then if you think that there's maybe too much focus when it comes to the cost of Open RAN? Is there too much focus on, will it be more expensive or less expensive to buy and deploy the technology, and not so much on what that technology will enable?
As of today, yes. Why? Because we have this incredible amount of, and we knew that. With disaggregating, we introduce, or we're not introducing, but we make visible to us a lot of a complexity that has simply not been visible to us. And we need to manage. And obviously managing complexity leads to a certain amount of cost, especially if it's between different countries. And this is why we are here and we try to solve that. But the other thing, which is not yet talked so much, of course, is this famous RIC, where this, from my perspective, this will be the differentiator. But unfortunately, you need to have that deployed in your complete network. Once you make the radio a programmable platform, and these X-apps and R-apps, that's something where much smaller companies can make a lot of sensible business that we can then goes more into the top line side.
Yeah, this RIC chap is very popular. I've noticed that today. But James, you wanted to come in on this point.
Well, I was going to talk about Mr. Rick as well, because I think, somebody said to me the other day that Open RAN isn't a technology change. It's a whole evolution in the way that we operate as an industry. And what I mean by that is that you can change the technology, you can change the way that we deploy sites, you can change the way that we work as technology and collaborative working, but actually we've got to bring the business with us, and the overarching business case around why we're doing Open RAN is possibly more important than the actual TCO, because that will feed into it. And RIC comes into play, because you can work with your business teams to say, well, actually, we can go and work with enterprise customers from a private network perspective, or giving slices, or providing certain X-apps, R-apps that are specific to those customer needs. And that's where the game changer is going to come with Open RAN.
Okay, great. Yeah, Boris.
So, and if you think about it, what is the alternative? The alternative is to continue in the model that we have today, which is proven that actually, if you look at the return of invested capital, it's just going down. So there is a study from our friends at McKinsey which shows that basically the spread, so what telcos really earn on their deployed capital over their capital cost is going to zero. This is where it is today. So there needs to be a change. There needs to be new value. And where should this value come from if not the telcos basically allow that new streams of open innovation come to their place and can be moderated by them to their customers and drive innovation? So I think it's a little bit no choice but taking it and make the best out of it and really get on top of it to drive this innovation. And become this master of the future destiny of telcos. And there's so much to be had.
Okay, so we need to factor in the services potential that Open RAN can enable. But of course, total cost of ownership is going to be incredibly important, because at the end of the day, whether you have a small private network or a very large national network, the CFO will need to sign off at some point, and therefore total cost of ownership and the models around that are incredibly important. So how can a network operator work out the potential total cost of ownership of an Open RAN, a disaggregated network, when there aren't too many examples to point to now? There isn't many use cases that one can refer to. So how can this equation be brought about, and how can a TCO be measured? Slawomir, let's start with you on this.
So first of all, you can apply the methodologies known from the areas where disaggregation happened, like the IT industry. That was mentioned already here. Well, I take this question as the question about the methodology. So you may base your calculations not on an experience of cases that you have seen, but on the model of reality that you take. And typically, the network costs are dimensioned based on calculating the number of nodes, knowing the cost models, and summing this up to see what will be the capex and opex. So that's like the basic thing. Now, on top of that, we can include, if you ask about the methodology, gains that you expect to have from using disaggregated systems. And for the deployments that we are familiar with, so the very first disaggregated deployments that we tend to call wave 1, where we have separation of software from hardware, you can add or you can account multiplexing gain coming from sharing of resources. That's one thing. Another thing is you can count using commercial off-the-shelf electronics, servers, into account. You can count automation of deployment and savings that are stemming from automating and reduction of manpower. But there will be more. For Open RAN Wave 2, so things that we are expecting in the coming, let's say, 2 years, I think that what will be very important to take into account will be the reuse of existing infrastructure that is already there in many cases. The infrastructure that means computing resources, either dedicated or shared, and front-haul resources. We think that we will not have to lay them in all the cases for the purpose of building the network, that we will be reusing as much as possible what is already existing. Of course, it needs, I would say, the next level of disaggregation of our solutions, of the solution, because then the network functionality should be like a liquid kind of, you should pour it into the available resources. So that's a bit more difficult thing. And the second point to complete this, to be taken into account, and also an indication where you can find cost savings, is the efficient use of radio resources. RIC, to a certain extent, will help to get us there, but I think there will be more to be done at the level of really real-time management of those resources. We will see ultra-dense rollouts of radio networks with interference present. That needs coordination, that needs management. And by appropriate allocation of resources, we can save a lot of them. So to give the range of savings can be like our research indicates up to 50% of the capacity can be provided when using the same bandwidth with the application of intelligent radio resource management algorithms.
Okay, so quite a list of potentials there to try and put monetary aspects against. Boris, are there any models or blueprints for trying to figure out the TCO of these disaggregated networks, or are we not at that stage yet?
I mean, we have not so many networks that are running, so but we have some. We have the Rakuten network in Japan, and we have some other cases on which we can identify drivers and use them for TCO calculations. And we have TCO models that we're using and we can apply. So I think, and we're getting smarter by the day. And I think that also should probably be the mindset. We are on a journey. So if we accept that TCO is important, but there is no choice for the industry but to go down this route, it's also a dynamic thing that we prove certain parameters that we actually think we need to achieve to ourselves and then expand. When we are there, expand. This is how also startups are doing it. You prove to yourself that certain things work. With the parameters that you set out should be the target, and then you expand on them and you basically go and do that. The key thing is you need to do it right from inception. So you need to go fully automated in a new way of working and basically prove to yourself that you start there, because otherwise you will prove to yourself that you cannot do it. And that is the challenge I think we need to solve.
Right, okay, and this is why facilities like this lab exist, because these things need to be tested and proved with lots of different companies involved. Now, as we've already heard on multiple occasions today, the integration aspect, obviously, around disaggregated networks is absolutely key to the whole process of bringing these things together and to the collaborative process. But of course, putting these disaggregated architectures together requires a lot of effort, a lot of integration, and a lot of ongoing supervision and management of the resulting networks. So in this case, do the economics only make sense for the very largest operators that have teams, internal teams that can manage this, and internal skills and the resources to put to this? James?
I think the question is possibly twofold. One is, for a greenfield operator, I think the only way is Open RAN. I was going to say the only way is Essex then, but the only way is Open RAN. Sorry, it's an English joke. No, the only way is Open RAN because it is the future of what we've just discussed. I think from a brownfield perspective, the smaller operators will come on the journey with the larger tier 1 and tier 2s. The reason I say that is because all of the investment that we do in locations such as this and labs such as this, and all of our own personal investment, will pave the way for the smaller operators to come on the Open RAN journey with the industry. I honestly believe that if you would start up a business now, Open RAN would be the way to go. But I think we're sort of early in the actual deployment phase and the integration phase, and I think that's where the investment will come, and the smaller operators will follow suit thereafter.
Okay. So, Franz, do you agree that the larger operators, the tier 1s, can lead the way, make the proof points, put in the effort, and then the smaller operators can benefit from this?
That's actually exactly what's happening as we speak, right? I mean, radio networks or mobile communication, it's a scale game. It's all about scale. The reason why we can provide and build networks at this price point, because we have global scale, which is of course important also going forward. This is one of the keys. And yes, today it's incredible effort, but we do things like this lab exactly to lower the effort going forward. That once we to some extent take the burden and invest on top because we are so convinced. That's why we do the MOU and stuff together also with Vodafone and a couple of our peers here to make that happen. But it would be totally stupid, sorry if I say it like that, if we would keep that exclusive to big players. That would never fly. That it has to be over time a commodity technology that everyone can integrate. Of course, there's always some work to be done, but that has to be minimized. The most of the stuff happens in community. Small part then happens in your own lab. That may still be a little bit more than what you do today, because today you to almost nothing. Everything is done by the supplier. So a little bit is coming. But that's it. Regarding management and supervision, the answer is automation. Yeah. It's the only way how you can do it anyhow. Because of that complexity, you don't even want to think. It would like you start to manually intervene in a data center. Every time that happens, you can read afterwards in the press that the data center fell over and was out of service because someone thought he needs to manually intervene. That always goes wrong, right? And that's exactly the idea of how this has to develop.
And I think automation, we haven't touched upon it a huge amount here today, well, on this panel, but automation is going to be key to this. And the way that we operate a network has to change significantly. Things like, alarm management, fault management, optimization, and so on. That's where the smaller operators will see some real genuine benefit, because it is going to be automated, it's going to be artificial intelligence, it's going to be machine learning. And we're there already, but we're going to be able to capitalize on that far more.
Just to make sure you don't miss it. This does not mean smaller ones should lay back and wait. And of course, they are more than
they're more than welcome on the journey to come to here with us.
Yes.
Yes. Well, let DT and Vodafone do all the work. That's
exactly.
nice.
No, that's not it. That's not it. The earlier you join, the earlier you benefit from it, because you need to go through this skill journey. You need to understand what you need to do, how to. That's what we are doing already. But it's really an invite also to these guys. Come. Start to familiarize yourself so you're ready in due time to take part of that and also the advantages that will bring.
Okay. Boris, you wanted to come in quickly?
Small disagreement, very small disagreement.
Great.
I think that actually software and cloud kills scale. So actually smart, fast-moving teams that do it right from the beginning, that basically drive an automated DevSecOps pipeline directly from the beginning, that is actually what you do and start in relatively small teams. And then you scale it up when it works. So I think that both Deutsche Telekom, Vodafone, as well as small operators will start small, create a new operating model that you only can create in a group of 100 people. And then you have the next 100 people. So you need to have those 100 people with which you start doing this, and then you expand your teams. So think about it this way. What is the task to be done? What is the team that you need to get the task done and to get the automation? And I think this can come from every angle. And nobody thought about Rakuten before it happened. And so it can come from different angles, and different components will come from different angles. And I think the key thing, and this is where you started, is the collaboration. So I'm so happy that there is TIP. I'm so happy that the industry comes together and collaborates. Because it will not work if we don't basically are open and learn from each other and pick what worked here and do it there. And I think this is what we will do much more in this industry, and it's pre-competitive. The differentiation comes then on top of that. What do you do with the capability that you can deploy in real time? What do you do with that? But first, to get to that, this is something which is a joint task for the industry.
Okay. Now, we've just got a few minutes left, and there's one aspect of the economics of disaggregation I just want to touch on. And you said if you were starting up a company now, you would focus on Open RAN. But how economically feasible is it for new entrants in Europe to build a company based on the Open RAN market? Is the market big enough? Are the rewards great enough? Is there enough support? So Slawomir, I want to come to you on this, because you're obviously best placed here to address that question.
Yeah, thank you very much. So is the market big enough? I think that we all know those predictions about that are published here and there about $6 billion of the market value in 2025, roughly being Open RAN being 10% of the total market or something like that. But imagine that it is 100%. Imagine that right now we have a base station that serves a number of customers, but in order to benefit fully from the bandwidth that you have available, one base station, one radio unit should serve one phone, one UE. That requires really high densification of a network, and that's what we believe in. Now, for such dense and massive deployment of networks, possibly with installations already there, I mean pre-installed elements of the network, like right now nobody sees people laying Ethernet cables in the offices. They are already there, while 15 years ago, if you wanted a network cabling in the office, you should on purpose light and draw holes in the wall and install things. So I think that the market potential is really huge because the traffic demand raises exponentially. So that is an indicator of the speed with which the companies should move forward. And that's what the investors love. This is this hockey stick that they want to see. So, this is what we are following.
But do you think, are the investors there? Are there companies out there willing to say, I've got 10 million to invest in a new startup, you're focused on Open RAN, yes, I'm going to put my money on it?
That is a very valid question. I can say that there is a good seed capital available in Europe. Our company was able to raise around $8 million in various grants or VC funding. There is significant capital available when you are able to show repetitive sales. But for the area in between, you know, that's a tough part. That's a tough part.
Okay. And anybody else got a view on how the market can support new entrants? You know, we hear at this event and other events, you know, we want new innovators to come in and be, you know, and expand the ecosystem. But this can only happen if they have the funds to be able to do this. So any thoughts on how this can be enabled without actually giving them some cash? I mean, does Deutsche Telekom or Vodafone have any sort of labs or facilities where startups can go in and work for a while and find their feet?
I think that's why labs like this are so important. So I'm not answering your question directly, but there are many labs around the globe that are encouraging startup companies to come in. So, you know, and we could name a few. So Sonic, UKTL, or the lab here. And what we're doing here is encouraging that ecosystem development for a plug-a-fest or plug-a-thon or whatever you want to call it. And it's saying, come and show me your wares, show me what you can do, and we can develop together and co-create. And I think that's the most important part. The challenging part around that is how do we govern all of that? And that's the bit that we need to address. But yes, I think there are enough labs out there to be able to develop the startup companies.
Okay, Franz.
That's the one part. The second part is what area the company is looking at. There are many puzzle pieces you need to build to deliver an Open RAN system. And some are easier, some are more complex. So starting with a massive MIMO active antenna may be a bit challenging for a startup, right. So to say, right? The other areas that may be a bit easier to come in, that's of course also something you need to consider here.
Okay. Well, that was an incredibly quick half an hour. We have unfortunately run out of time, but I'm sure the speakers here will be around if anybody wants to come and talk to them afterwards. But in the meantime, let's give a round of applause to our 4 speakers here. Thank you very much.